All right. On today's episode, we interviewed Jens Grudno and we talked a lot about manufacturing, right? What it looked like to transition from kind of having, a day job, some other gigs, and buying your first manufacturing business. And more importantly, not only was his first business, it was a manufacturing business and it was a turnaround. So, really talking through a lot of the mistakes made and some of the things to consider when you're buying a manufacturing business. JC and I have bought a manufacturing company. Manufacturing is not easy. Right. But also that in there lies the opportunity to be able to kind of step into something that most people are going to shy away from and be able to go and, get something performing. So Casey, what were some of your big takeaways?
Man, I'll say warning to all searchers, do not follow his rule book on how he found the business, right? It's everything not to do, but it's that tenacious. You can see it in his eyes. He's tenacious. He's not going to give up. He's never going to quit. And after 4 years, he's starting to see the results of that hard work and that hard labor. And you got to think about it, it's a straight razor niche, and like I've thought about buying one, but it's just not something we all talk about. So it's such a unique individual place. But I will tell you, you can tell that there is a day. I go every day with intention to work hard, and that's what you get from Jan. And so that's what I took from this podcast.
Yeah.
Guys, incredible.
And maybe to add to that too, right? The other thing to kind of note is just talking about incremental improvements, right? It's not about buying a turnaround company and figuring out, hey, how do I 10x the revenue? Right. Like it's not that at all. It's, hey, can I make my given products more profitable to where at least I'm making a profit on them instead of losing money? Right. Can I do some small incremental improvements, both on the expense side and the revenue side, and get the business from losing money to being an actual profitable company? Right. And the other thing too to note is, he bought a division of a company, which has got its own challenges. So
in Germany.
I
mean, this is full of great nuggets for somebody.
Oh yeah. We'll hop right in.
Hey everybody, it's Feras and would love to see you at our upcoming M&A Launchpad conference in Chicago, October 26th. At a conference, we talk about what it looks like to value a business, how to buy a business, how do you manage a team, right? And ultimately, we're big believers in the buy then build concept. So we're going to have one of our friends, Walker Dybel, the author of Buy Then Build there, as well as one of our keynotes and many more. So we'd love to see you there to kind of get exposure to the space and network.
All right. Hey, Jens, welcome to the show.
Hi, happy to be here.
All right. So today we're going to talk about manufacturing. Casey and I have been through the School of Hard Knocks on running a manufacturing business.
I think we're in the School of Hard Knocks.
We're still in the School of Hard Knocks of, what it takes to look at a manufacturing business, and figured, we can kind of learn from you as well, kind of what are some of your experiences, and for the audience to kind of learn on just some of the pitfalls and things to avoid.
And you're in Germany. So it's a different conversation. A lot of the entrepreneurs we've spoken to are in the United States. So man,
to date, actually, you're the first international, and we've spoken to an entrepreneur that was, where was he? Malaysia or?
Yes, he's there visiting.
Yeah, but he was just kind of out there visiting while he did the call, but his business is still state-based. So we'll learn a little bit more about European business and culture and all the things that adds to it. So Jens,
I feel honored. Didn't know that I'm the first actually outside the US. That's cool.
You are, yes.
Yeah.
Nice.
So maybe let's hop right in, Jens. So what do you have going on today, right? And how'd you get into it?
Let's start with what I'm doing at the moment. So I bought a business 4 years ago, and it's the largest manufacturer of traditional straight razors. So these cutthroat razors that you know from mafia movies that very few people use still, and that 100 years ago or 150 years ago, almost everyone used. And now it's a tiny, tiny niche business, which is interesting because it's a business where there is a huge moat, because the knowledge also over the years and decades went away and no one wrote it down, how to actually get from a rough steel to something that is sharper than a Gillette or some other brand blade. And I got into it 4 years ago now. So 1st of October was my 4th year with the business.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So you bought it in 19?
End of 19, correct, yeah.
Same. My first acquisition was the same exact time, closed. So I just had my time. So it's interesting.
Yeah. And it went past quite fast. So it's probably the same as if you have a kid. I have a son now that is almost years, and the time just flies. And it's the same with the business, right? You have so much going on. You have so many ups and downs that it doesn't feel like 4 years. It feels like 1 year or 2 years or something.
Awesome. So how'd you find the business, right? And were you going out initially looking for a manufacturing business, or did you just kind of stumble into it?
It was the second one. It was actually stumbling into it. So the business found me through a friend who worked for the business as an outside consultant. He built the website of the business. He started social media marketing in the early days, and had his own agency placed in Berlin. And he was a friend from Berlin. And then one day he just said, look, they're not paying their invoices anymore. And the CEO called me and said, oops, we forgot to tell you. A couple of weeks ago, we filed for bankruptcy.
Wow. So this is a turnaround story.
It is a turnaround, yeah.
First business you did a turnaround and manufacturing. You're crazier than I thought.
I actually read a book afterwards, it's Buy Then Build, and there's many things listed up that you shouldn't do, especially for the first time. And all of them I have a check mark at. So taking money from friends and family.
All right, our buddy Walker Dybel wrote that book, and he's a good dude. And so maybe really quick though, what were you doing before, right? What led you to start looking to buy a business to begin with, right? And what did you have in mind whenever you started that journey, right? Ultimately, you landed on a manufacturing business, but what were you thinking about beforehand?
So I come from a completely different background. So when I was 16, 17, I wrote I read The Intelligent Investor, got into value investing. And my number one goal when I was 17, 18 was, okay, I want to be a portfolio manager and manage money for institutions or private individuals with value investing principles, because it just clicked for me, right? It's okay, whatever other people don't like, the price is low, you just buy it, keep it for forever or for a couple of years. And then when it's on vogue again, then you can sell it. So studied finance, studied engineering, did my CFA, started working for PIMCO in Munich. They had a Munich office, and then went to a fund manager in Munich that is quite specialized. So there's lots of quant traders there. And there was one fund that did investing in equities, but in everything. And I got a sub fund and invested that in small caps and special situations, which was quite fun.
Wow.
But did not somehow make sense after a year for me, because I wanted to build something, right? It was fun financially, it was fun from a bit intellectually, because it was like an investigative journalist that is paid more than in normal investigative journalists, right? You try to figure stuff out that others haven't figured out, even though they get paid a lot of money and are very smart people. And after a year, I said, look, this is fun. I tried 10 years to get here. Now I got here, and now I'm figuring out this is not what I want to do for the next years, especially not for the next decades. And I quit before having a new job. I asked a friend, hey, I want to build something. Building something in Germany means you go to Berlin. He was in Berlin. He knew the founders of Rocket Internet. And so met with one of the founders, and he said, look, we have an opening, come here in 2 months. And that's what I did. So I went to Berlin, started or was there right after Rocket Internet bought a company to build that up quite fast. Then was at another company that was in the space of luxury watches, buying and selling them, building a marketplace there. Then tried 2 businesses all on my own after reading Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week. Of course, you don't want any employees, right? And externalize everything, every work. And I tried 2 at the same time. And of course, that doesn't...
I got to share with you a similar, I'm telling you, I read the book, or I tried to emulate exactly, man, it is not as easy as one likes to lead it to be. It is, it's almost like these no money down by companies pitches that people put out there. It's like, come on, really? Like, all right, where's the catch?
There is a catch, yeah. Most of the time it just doesn't work, right? But I think it does. It is an initial starting point for many people to even think about getting off of being employed to starting something on their own, even if it's while they're still employed, right? So I think from changing the mindset of many people, that was very valuable, that book. And for me, it was basically, okay, let's try it. Failed with both ventures at the same time, and then founded something in the medical space, elderly care space, IoT. So also no clue about those topics. Did that for 4 years. And then while I was slowly going out of that business, my friend talked to me and said, look, this company called DOVO, they make straight razors. And I knew them before because he talked about them quite often, because he was
consulting for them, right? Same friend?
Yeah. Uh-huh. And he started collecting razors when he was in college. So he knew the company already. He knew how valuable the brand was, how known the brand was all around the world. But it's very, very niche. And he told me it's a huge shame that brand goes bust, because they were the largest ones. And I think once they go, the smaller ones also might go, because they think, hey, it's not worth staying in this business. So after he said, look, I would want to buy this on my own, because he saw how many things were managed wrong, how old certain structures were, how bad clients were treated, both B2C and B2B. I said, look, let's just look into it, right? I'm shifting out of my old business. I have a friend who was in the restructuring business. So I talked to him. We got the numbers. We got the data room from the lawyers and said, look, let's just drive there, right? The numbers look okay, right? There were 3 sectors in that business. One was scissors, one was nippers, and one was straight razors or shaving in general. And the straight razor part was actually quite profitable compared to the others.
And you do a straight razor, right? It's like one of the things I don't like about Gillette is that you got to replace it. It's wasteful. I mean, all these things that you can think about, right? And it's quite pricey. Now you get a great shave, right? But I take it with the straight razor. The selling point is like once you buy one, you keep it sharp. You don't have to buy another razor, right? I mean, is that kind of the selling point?
Correct. It feels different on the skin. So it's a lot easier on the skin, even though it looks a lot more dangerous. And of course, you can give it to your kids or kids, right? So it lasts forever. I was shaved with a razor from 17 something out of Japan. I'd say if you take care of them, you can use them literally forever for yourself. And then your kids could also use them. So it's like a good watch, right? You can invest in a very shitty watch that goes bust once it hits water, or that you smack somewhere, and then you have really expensive watches that can last for generations. And it's same with straight razors. So you can buy one from us for $120 and use it all your life. You have to hone it every couple of times, but that's it, right? The honing stone, normally, if you use it every couple of days, that also lasts a lifetime.
So it sounds like you guys cater.
That's it.
You guys cater more towards the trimming hair and not the slitting throats part of the marketing, right? So walk us through
on that one.
So walk us through the deal, right? I mean, how much revenue, how big was this business? Was it actually for sale, or are they just structuring just doing the bankruptcy restructuring and you just stepped in and they like, what, maybe we will offload? I mean, how did the actual transaction take place?
It was quite strange, because normally you think if a business is valuable, there should be some people bidding on it. And we figured out in the process that we're the only bidder. That should never leak to any bidder, because then you can just say, look, what does it cost for the lawyers to wind down the business? Mm-hmm. And we just bid €1 above it. Right? And they save time. We didn't do it that extreme, but we bid 10% over the calculated costs of winding down the whole business, and we got the business for that amount, right? Because we were 98% sure that we're the only bidder. I think the old owner, because they still had cash in the bank, if they wanted to shut down the business, normally it would have cost a lot of money, because at the company, the people, once they were hired, they stayed. So there were people that were 45 years, 40 years, 35 years in that business, right? If you were there, you stayed there, right? It was super interesting for people to be there because they were the number one in scissors and stuff. And if you wind it down without a bankruptcy, you have to pay a lot of money to get rid of the people. So I think the old owner didn't even want a bidder. They just wanted to wind it down. And that was the most cash efficient way to do it for them. And then we came along and actually bid on it.
Gotcha.
Which I think in retrospect, yeah.
So is there like a pension? Is that kind of a thing in Germany where, like if they've worked for you for a certain amount of time, you have to pay them a certain thing? You can't just say, hey, we're going out of business. You have to pay them something, right?
Yeah, it's not pension, but it's for every year you with the company, there's, I think, half a month or 1 month of pay you have to pay them, right? So if you're there for, 20 years or something, you have to pay them 2 years or a bit more or less of salary. And if you have 45 people or 50 people, that gets
so anti-capitalist, because it only matters whenever you're shutting down a business, which is usually the time that you don't have the money to spend on that.
But it's different rules, right?
Yeah.
It's different rules. And that's the other thing we want to talk about, navigate, but finish on the deal.
Yes. Yeah, so how big was this deal? How many employees, what was the dollar amount that you bought it for? How much revenue was it doing, et cetera?
It's 4 years back, but I'm trying to think of numbers. So there were 45 employees at the top time. I think 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when the business was really booming, they had 85 people. It got down to 45 when they declared bankruptcy. And then I took over only the straight razor part, which was 10 people. I didn't take anyone in the office, anyone in admin, anyone in sales and marketing, because
you bought just a piece of the company basically and the brand.
You brought the division, right? You took the straight razor division.
The whole division, yeah.
Yeah, got it.
Plus the contracts of the workers in that division. And then hired 6 other people after that from mostly external, because finding someone in Zolling that is best at their craft in marketing, for example, or on marketing is not going to happen, right? They're going to sit somewhere in Berlin or Munich or Cologne or something. So hired them externally, marketing, sales, and admin people, finance people, and 2-3 more in manufacturing, just to scale up the business. And then went into restructuring mode, right? So they had an old ERP system. I did a huge mistake in switching it directly in the beginning. That's never do that again. Wait 1 year until you even understand what kind
That's
of
exactly what we did in our manufacturing business. So right about the year and a half mark, you got switched.
Yeah. I try to do everything at the same time. And at the beginning, of course, then it doesn't work properly, right? Normally you would say, look, do nothing for a couple of weeks or months and then start prioritizing what to do. The biggest mistake even before buying the business was that when I think 2 weeks or 3 weeks before the transition of the business, right? The German word is Betriebsübergang. So the transition of the old company to our new company, we founded an LLC. We didn't buy an existing LLC, which we should have done, because then once it's founded, right, it has to be notarized. Then you have to wait until it's actually in the registry, and then you can go and get your tax numbers, your VAT numbers, your export numbers, and stuff like that, right? In a going concern, if you don't have those things, it can take, for especially the export part, it took us, I think, 5-6 months to get that.
Is that a big part of your business?
It's 75 is export. Now it's actually went up to 80% because US market is growing that much, right? So we were basically sitting there, oh shit, we can't write any invoice because we're not allowed to, right? So then we had to go to the lawyers of the old business and say, look, please let us write invoices over the old business. So the old business writes all the invoices, does all the business, and then we do transactions that way, which was also tough because
they're in bankruptcy, right?
Yeah, they're in bankruptcy. And how's that going to impact you and your money? And is it going to be your money or their money?
That's the thing, right? So they can't transfer. The clients still have, if they transfer you money, they still have the old bank accounts. So some transfer there, then we can't get it. And the attorney can't get it because he has a huge legal obligation that no cent that is in that bank account goes out because it belongs to the debtors. They formed a new bank account just for us, and they had 2 other bank accounts of the old company, right? So the money went into all kinds of bank accounts, and then we had to somehow figure out what money belongs to what, because there were still old orders, new orders. That was a huge mess, right? It was 120 hours a week figuring out, not just restructuring the whole thing, but also figuring out how do we get to our money, because the sales were there, but we didn't have any money going into our bank account, right? It was a huge mess. And I had to pay not just invoices, but also after the first month, you pay salary. You have to pay salary. Yeah. And we didn't really have enough money in the bank because we didn't think of that case happening, right? So it's not like we had a couple of 100,000 laying around there where we could pay at least salaries and invoices for 6 months. It was very, very tightly calculated what we put in that account.
So you had to, like, you're talking about on the go problem solving 24/7 in that first, 6 months right there. Because one, you're dealing with a restructuring. How long? You said 3 years?
That was the first problem. The second problem was that in the last couple of years, the old business or the old management of the business, they cut costs quite a bit. And not just cut costs, but said, look, even if there's small mistakes in the product, just ship them out, right? Oh. They ran the whole business and the brand down, right? So we had to simultaneously ensure all the B2B clients, because that was still 95% of the business, that now everything is different and we're taking care of quality, then actually taking care of quality and figuring out at what stages do mistakes happen, because in the beginning, everyone's pointing fingers at everyone else, right? You go to someone and say, look, how can this happen? That this is actually being sent out because a client complains, and then it's, this person did it, then they point the finger somewhere else. So simultaneously figuring out, okay, where actually mistakes happen and how can we also revamp the brand, that the people trust that when they get something from us, it's 100% certain that it's good, right? It's basically like Rolex, where so every watch that comes out is flawless. And that took quite a while because I was super into the getting money to somehow keep afloat. And the second big problem was that financially was good in the long term, but not in the short term. So we bought the inventory of the old company that was in the razor part. And there was a huge inventory, hundreds of thousands of worth of finished goods in the old inventory, but we didn't know how to value it. So we said, look, we pay nothing for it. We don't own it. It's still in the old company. And we do a how to call it? Consignment.
Consignment. So you sell it and they get a percentage, right?
Yeah, it's 50-50, right? If we sell something, you're happy because you get 50%. Otherwise, you would actually throw it away. That's what he would have done. And if we sell it, why we did the acquisition, then we get 50% for us. The problem was that, of course, you need a basis of what's in the inventory, right? So you have, look, this product 100 times, this product 500 times, this product 10,000 times. So we signed that, the lawyers signed that, I signed that, but we didn't check if the numbers are correct. And the person that did the counting, and you have to imagine it's 1,200 different products, right? It's not just, hey, I'm going to count it, it's one small room. It's huge amounts of products, sometimes 60, 70 years old, because the company is 116 years old and at the same spot, right? So that it never moved. So it kept really old products still there because one day you might still sell them. So he counted them, and the ones that are smaller ones, like nail files that are, I don't know, production value 100 or €1.20 or something, sometimes there's 10,000 of those products. So the total value is quite high. But of course, you don't count those. You count maybe 10 or 100, and then you put it on a scale, and then you say, look, this is times 1,000, so it's this many, right? And it's quite close, and plus minus 10, which doesn't matter. The problem was that the scale he used was not, what's the English word?
Calibrated.
Yes, correct. It was not calibrated.
Oh my God.
And it was not calibrated by 14, 15%. So we sold everything. It went into the account of the old company, right? Because we couldn't write invoices yet. And then at the end of the month, we said, look, we're going to count what was sold, right? We see it in the invoices, and then we compare it to what is still in stock. And we had a huge discrepancy with some, right? Because we actually used a different scale then. We're like, okay, what the hell is going on, right? Are the old employees stealing, right? Because they're so pissed about the old company or something.
He brought out the old scale, the one they've used for 100 years to win deals, didn't he?
It works.
It sounds like it was your DD guy, right? The guy that did the DD on your side that made that mistake.
It was the guy that I also took over from the old company. It was the old lawyer that didn't check it, and it was me that didn't check it. So no one checked what was in there, right? Everyone should have checked. No one checked. Really bad, right?
Got it.
So we have to figure out what was going on. And it took actually weeks and sometimes months for some numbers to figure out what was going on, right? Because with 1,200 products and a huge mess in the inventory management, plus the ERP system, which didn't work properly, that took 2 years to then get the last payments from the attorneys of the old companies. And yeah, it was every month, every 2 months, a huge multiple all-nighters to then tell them again, this is valid. Yeah, it was a mess. So I would never do a consignment inventory again without checking every number.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's
so a couple of questions for you, right? So really quick. So you bought the division of a company.
Correct.
What happened to the rest of the company? They shut down shop on everything?
Yeah.
And as part of the buying the division, you got to keep the brand, right? Because you didn't care about the scissors and some of the other stuff. Only the razors. The other stuff essentially completely shut down, right? Went bankrupt. But you got to keep the name for your company, right?
Correct. Yeah. Took over all the IP and the manufacturing production machines for my division, plus the inventory for my division, and everything else we didn't take over.
Got it. And how much revenue was it doing?
It was doing 4.5 million with all divisions, with a huge loss. And then we took it over and it made 2 point something because we only took over a small part of it.
So year one, you did a little over 2 million, it sounds like, of revenue?
Yeah.
Got
We're
it.
now trying to get, and we grew, I think, 12%, 40% every year in the core business. If you count out the beginning of the old inventory we sold, right? Because that went down to zero over
you had to
2
make
years.
And now you're having to make more, right? So at one point you're not manufacturing as much. You're just selling out that inventory as consignment. But at some point you have to start manufacturing more. Is that kind of got it.
And so then another question, because this is kind of a unique structure, right? How did you value that portion of the business and how did you fund that, right? Was it just bootstrapped out of your own pocket? Did you have investors? And, how did y'all come up? Basically, how'd you come to a valuation with the sellers that was equitable for both parties? And then how did you finance that?
10% over the bankruptcy cost.
But I mean, how did the sellers just agree to it and that's it?
Yeah, because we're the only bidders. So they also know, because they're the largest bankruptcy company that does all big cases in all of North Rhine-Westphalia. So they have They have companies that have a couple of hundred millions of revenue or billions of revenue, and then you have this tiny part, right? So they don't want to invest any time in that small company. So no one bids, they would shut it down. And then someone comes along and says, look, I'm going to take over at least this part. So for them, it's fine because they don't have to wind down 10 people. They don't have to take care of the...
So you're talking low six figures then, right? It sounds like for the whole thing.
I think it was 200 something thousand.
Was the machinery worth more than that by itself, you thought?
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Even, especially the inventory was worth a lot more, even if you would sell it as a discount, right? By buying the company.
He's a value investor.
Yeah, that's value in that. I mean, you know, in the end of the day,
how he's seeing it.
That's the one nice thing about asset-based businesses, right? Where like the business valuation is screwed up because, you know, the EBITDA, the revenues aren't there, but you have all that equipment that still is needed. And so that's a pretty sweet deal. And it makes it manageable enough too, that you were able to kind of you didn't have to go off and create a big syndication, raise a lot of money. It probably sounds like it's probably just you and a friend to be able to take that down and get to keep 100% of that business.
I didn't have much money. So I had other investors that I knew from Munich, from studying in Munich and from Berlin. And now we're actually, let me see, 15 investors, like from 0.4% to 37% roughly myself. So there are many people inside from all different backgrounds, but most of them are themselves entrepreneurs. Yeah.
Got it.
But you're so really going back to your friend that was doing the consulting and the marketing. He had to come to you and say, listen, there is a market here online. There's a following. I mean, something had to be able to go, look, there is a sell through here. So what was that feedback he gave you that kind of made you, yeah, there's an opportunity here?
So he knew how powerful the brand was and that they still even had clients, even after the old management really bringing down the quality of the products and doing everything wrong, right? Instead of upgrading the brand or upgrading the packaging, right? That even if you open the packaging, right? That's the first step of something, of the brand, right? How you experience the brand as a buyer. And they went from the traditional, really nice, really expensive also packaging that was made in Solingen to packaging that was basically sunglass aluminum thing with very flimsy, wobbly plastic inside that really smelled toxic from China.
Oh no.
So even after all those steps and after all those years and really treating the customers shitty, they were still the biggest one and they were still having quite nice revenues with good margins, right? So for myself, it's okay. Assuming I'm an average person, how much do I have to screw up to not make this work? And for me, it was, look, there's very high likelihood that no other company will actually go into this market new because it's not worth it. It's too small. So the only competition is the competition that's in the market. The biggest competition for other companies in the cutlery space in the US and in Germany is Pakistan and China, right? They make similar quality, if not better sometimes, for a tenth of the price, right? So competing in the cuticle scissors or nail scissors part or something, that's completely waste of time, right? You're always going to lose in the long run. So straight razors, is it something that other people in other countries, no matter where in the world, could come in? And for me, could maybe yes, but the market is too small and it's the number one hardest thing to manufacture by far, right? It takes 4, 5, 6 years for a certain steps to be actually learned well from someone that we start training.
Got it.
Right?
So
we have
training
one person
is a 5 to 6 year process to replace them.
To really be very good at a certain amount of steps. Yeah.
So did you create like an apprentice program? Like, did you come in and think like, hey, let's create this program to build the employee base? I mean, did that, like, is that some of the value adds that you brought?
It's learning by doing. So you hire someone that already has, so we hired one that already has done that very similar work, if not the same work, for 2 years before. So he already knew how to do it, but still after he's there for 2 years now, he's not as good as the guy that there's for 16 years. So it takes just a lot of time because you do everything by hand, right? It's not that you have something where you move something. It's still the old machinery is exactly the same as you did it 116 years ago. And you can't really automatize, right? You could probably build something to automatize it, but the market's just too small, right? It doesn't make sense, right? You have to invest a couple of millions to build those machines.
Right.
And you would just recoup the investment over the next 50 years. It doesn't make sense at all, right? Which is also nice because you have the old machines there, sometimes 60, 70 years old. It looks exactly the way it looked 100 years ago, exactly the same chairs they used 100 years ago. But for me, it
Whenever
was
chairs
very
didn't break so
clear.
quick.
Yeah.
Exactly.
For me, it was very clear that there would be no new market entrants. So that's a huge moat, right? No new entrants. Looking at the people in the markets, saying, look, there is no company where that is the main business, right? The largest competitor from us, it's 2-3% of the revenue. Most of the things is tactical knives they build in Zolling and in China and then ship it to the United States. And they're going bust maybe too in the next couple of months, right? So they completely overplayed their hand. So for me, it was the competition. There's 4 major ones. They will most likely not all be there in the next 5 years. So it's a shrinking amount of companies that offer that product. We're the largest one. We have the best reputation, and it was run terribly bad, from treating the employees bad to having the packaging bad. There's very bad branding, no customer service, no sales, no marketing at all. Like they had no person in marketing and sales, right? So for me, it was just a no-brainer. It was okay. It checks every box. It's almost too good to be true.
Got it. And so you had it for 4 years. And so where have you taken it to today?
I take myself 10 years older, minimum.
It's 10 years and 4 years. That's entrepreneurship will do that for you.
That's roughly 2.5. Yeah. So we had a portfolio of 800 products roughly when taking over the business, and cut that down into 70 and then build it up over the last years to 95 again. Right. So we said, look, cut everything that is beneath a certain revenue. No one complained. We increased the price 4 times over that time just to see, okay, when will actually people buy less? And so far, there is no impact on the sales volume.
Because it sounds like you buy one and you buy one, right? And so you're going to buy one of these, and you may buy more because you're a collector. But like for me, I've been really considering a straight razor, right? I don't like the idea of throwing my razor out every 2 weeks. I'm like, crap. It's just, so I've been thinking about it, right? But then there's all these other concerns like, oh my God, what'll that cut my neck, or all these things. But I've got to go through the process. But I'm only going to buy one. I don't see myself buying like 30 of these unless I'm collecting. Right? I've got one really, really nice watch. Right? I don't wear it all the time. I wear it occasionally, but I have a really nice watch that I like. And so is that most of your customers, or is it people that you're thinking like, okay, 30% of the market's going to buy one, and then there's several that are buying 3, 4, and 5, and then you have this group of collectors? How is that working out in that space?
I think it's similar what you said about watches, right? There's many people that have one luxury watch, and then there's some that are collectors that go completely nuts. Or with shoes, right? They have a whole room of very expensive shoes. They're shoe traders. And same goes for us. So there's people that have 300 razors from 1800 something. They're collectors. They will always buy everything that they think they might like. And then there's some people that just want to try once, right? And then they stop using it maybe even, or they use one and then they get a hang of it and buy a second one, third one, buy a used one first, love it, and then buy a new one. Many people buy it, I think, also as presents for someone.
Yeah.
So
yeah, good gift.
It's their whole marketing is basically be a real man. Use a straight razor.
I think so.
So you said you clearly improved your margins, right? Got the pricing figured out where it probably should be or where you could push it to, and you said you were able to kind of grow revenue 10-15% a year for 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and those tweaks. What's that?
With new products that we introduced that are not manufactured in our facility, but in Solingen. So for example, cuticle scissor and nail scissors and hair scissors and beard scissors, we don't manufacture them internally any longer, but someone that worked for DOVO over, I think, 20, 30 years, he has a own small company and he manufactures those for us because we know that's the #1 quality. And so for that, the margin is good because we don't have to increase our fixed cost. We basically brand them with our logo, we package them, and we ship them out, right? So I don't need hire more people if that volume grows.
Yeah, you're able to leverage the brand and essentially make revenue out of thin air, right? Is what that lets you do. So that's great.
Yeah. And then consumables, of course, right? Because like you said already, if you buy one straight razor, you shouldn't need one afterwards unless you drop it and it breaks or something, right? So having soaps, aftershave, developing a double-edged safety razor. It was 2.5 years of really excruciating, painful work with the partners that are building that. those things are also nice, right? Because the work internally is very low. They're sometimes, most of them I can reach via bike, even in Zoling, and they have a nice margin.
So you guys ship to the United States? Y'all have that retail outlet?
Casey's gonna get an order placed later today.
I have a birthday coming up. My mom literally asked me the other day, what do I want for my birthday? And I was like, I have no idea. And I'm like, you know what?
Great razor set. Perfect.
I was like, let's check it out. Yeah.
So which one do you make the most margin on just to get the right one ordered? So maybe last question before we wrap up. So, you're 4 years into it, right? How do you feel about it? You feel great about it? You're like, all right, we're in our stride. It's getting profitable. You feel really good about it? Or do you feel like, hey, you're 4 months into this thing and you still don't really have a good light at the end of the tunnel?
I always think I'm over the worst and then something new happens, right? So for example, 2 years ago, we had the largest partner. When we had products that we dealt for another company and we were the largest dealer for them. And from one day to another, they didn't tell us that they had someone else taking over that business instead of us, right? We didn't have huge margin on that, but it was 1/3 of the revenue. So that broke down even without them telling us. We figured out through other people that, by the way, for 1 month now, someone else is stealing the product, right? So that was a huge loss. Then 1.5 years ago, we had to move the company for the first time in 116 years. And that went 3 times over budget. We lost 1.5 months at least of production because the electrician didn't start work early enough for the machines to run. So we just couldn't work. So that was hugely expensive. So every year there's at least one time where you say, oh, come on, not again, right? And this year, it was the first part of the year that was really, really bad from revenue perspective, right? But that was all over Zoling. Like most companies had short work. A couple of them closed shop. I know a couple of them are looking to be sold, doing huge discounts to get their inventory out because this huge craze about buying knives and every kind of cutlery, where people were in lockdown and say, look, what am I doing at home? I can start shaving with a straight razor, or hey, I can, now that I'm cooking at home, I want new knives, a new knife set and stuff like that, right? So the companies in Zoling that are shipping all over the world, they made the mistake that said, look, we have 2 years now of huge growth. And they basically put a ruler on that growth and said, look, we were even building more facilities, building everything out, hiring people. And then it, of course, tanked again. Right, so the first half year was really bad also for us. And now the last couple of weeks are picking up again. So I'm quite positive for the second half. And we're bringing out new products that are in a different space again, that has a way broader audience than straight razors. And it's produced again in Zoling, but not from us. So we don't have to hire people to actually help with that revenue.
It sounds like you're still going through the motions. So
a lot, yeah.
The answer.
If you ask me 1 week, I'm very happy. If you ask me another week, I'm like, why did I ever do this?
Okay, good. I'm not the only one.
Awesome. All right. Well, we can go ahead and move on to our rocket round where we ask the interviewer the same 3 questions. So first question, what do you like to do in your free time?
Now that I have a son, spend every free minute with my son and with my Dalmatian back there, my dog. Go in the forest or something, have him look at acorns, run around and have the dog run around. Read lots about all kinds of topics, from restructuring topics to finance topics to political topics to everyone on Twitter and in blogs, and reading a lot and listening to podcasts like a madman. Like my wife hates me for that I always have something in my ear and listening.
Same here.
2 times this
Same
week.
here.
If I'm in the bathroom, it doesn't matter. Before I fall asleep, directly when I wake up, while working on something, it's podcast addicted.
And I listen at a 1.5x, which drives my wife even more nuts because, you know, it's like, how do you listen to that? You know, so anyways.
I'm getting the
Your
concept.
eyes start twitching after a while.
All right, next question. So what's been your most memorable moment in the business journey?
Only the hard parts. So the message that 1/3 of the revenue breaks away, that was one part. That's what the fear is ingrained in the brain somehow, right? The good parts, you actually have to look at it objectively, which you normally can't, right? So many things were done. And if you talk to outside parties in Zoling and in the industry, they tell you, hey, this is amazing what you did. And I don't know what. I'm like, I don't feel that way because I only focus, of course, on what is not working.
Oh, and that's what we do. That's what we do as entrepreneurs. I tell that to my partner, I tell that to the team. I mean, you're my leadership at least, right? Like we're in those positions because we solve problems. And so you only see the negative because you're constantly solving one problem after the other. You're not there to solve the good things, right? You're there to solve the bad things. And
But I will encourage you all to give yourself a high five and because I come from a different side. I'm an encourager. I like to say, hey, look what we did today, right? Because I know tomorrow we're going to get our asses kicked again, but let's celebrate the little things. So don't forget that. I'm a big celebrate the little things.
I do that for others to motivate them with the team and with other parties. I myself don't feel that. I don't feel a success, even if something great happens.
Same. It's lonely at the top.
Think about the something bad again.
Yeah. That's where at least, having partners is nice because at least partners are usually people you can go vent to and, commiserate with too. So it's not completely lonely, but it sounds like you're kind of in it a little bit on your own. All right. And last question, what's your favorite tool or resource?
The most recent tool I use quite a bit is what probably most people are using by now is Claude and ChatGPT, just for brainstorming certain things, for structuring my thoughts, because I'm quite chaotic in the brain. So feeding it to actually structure my thoughts and minds, because I take quite a lot of notes from listening to podcasts, from reading stuff. And so I use Evernote. And then if you have a huge Evernote that was grown over 10, 15 years or something, and you have an AI go over it and structure it, that is quite potent, and coming up with marketing ideas and so on. Second is the whole Adobe suite, because it's something creative that even if at night I can't do anything that requires a brain, I can still create pictures or use Midjourney or something to create something, and then actually work with the Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Photoshop to create certain things, like etchings for a new knife for Halloween, for example.
Okay, awesome. So Claude, ChatGPT, and Adobe Suite.
Yeah.
Well,
love them.
How can listeners get a hold of you?
Email, actually.
All right, you want to go ahead and share?
Or LinkedIn. Email would be j. and then my second name, which is not easy to spell. It's Grudno, spelled Grudno, and then at DOVO.com, DOVO.com. So j.grudno at DOVO.com.
And that's where I can buy my razor, right? At dovo.com?
Yes, please write me.
All right, we'll put all that in the show notes for the listeners. But hey, Jens, thank you very much.
Let's make a discount code for anyone that buys. So actually, we have a store in Europe. We're shipping Europe, UK, and the United States directly from the countries in 1 or 2 days delivery.
Okay. What's the discount
let's
code?
Make 25% discount code. You tell me the code. I'll set it up right now.
Let's call it Launchpad.
Launchpad? Good.
Perfect. Awesome.
Launchpad,
Jens.
25%. I'll set it up right now.
Appreciate it. Perfect.
Well, outstanding. Good. You just made a sale.
All right. Good. No, and thank you for sharing the information. I mean, I think, wealth and knowledge, like I said, manufacturing is tough, and it's good to kind of get that out there and help share with our listeners.
Yeah. And then the distressed and all that, man, totally, man, all props to you. I know you're not celebrating your success until you see your big win, but man, I'm thoroughly impressed.
Thank you. If anyone wants to contact me to pitch something they want to buy, I will do my best to discourage them to not make too many mistakes, or encourage them if I think, okay, that's actually something where something there. So feel free, everyone, to contact me. And I already did that for a couple of other people in Switzerland, US, and in Germany, just for them to have someone that actually went through certain steps already for 4 years. Yeah. And
we'll put all that in the show notes.
Came out of it. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you very much, Jens. I really appreciate the
conversation. So nice to meet you.
Very nice meeting you.
Thank you for listening to the M&A Launchpad Podcast. If you've enjoyed today's podcast and would like to support us, please leave us a rating and a review after you listen. I'm Casey Minshew, and I look forward to talking with you next week.